This is Brookhaven Town Supervisor Dan Panico. Thank you for watching Supervisor Panico on the air. Today I'm joined by my friend Bobby Hazen from Stop Drowning Now. The season is warming up, Bobby. Memorial Day was a washout, but finally it's going to get warm. People on this island are going to head to the pool. They're going to head to the beaches. What do they need to know?
They just have to be vigilant. They have to understand that drowning is the leading cause of death for children aged 1 to 4 across the country, and that it can happen, and you have to be aware of the circumstances and have layers of protection to be able to protect your family when you're at the beach, when you're on open water, when you're swimming in your backyard pool. And we could talk about those layers of protections that really will make a difference in saving a child's life or saving an adult's life.
Sure. And how preventable is drowning?
100% preventable, believe it or not. People don't understand that. If you're following the layers of protection and you're keeping the strategies at hand, you can absolutely stop drownings 100%.
Now, this has been a quest you've dedicated your life to. We've read recently about a tragedy that occurred to a young person upstate. How did you get into this movement and educating people about drowning prevention?
I found it very strange that anytime we would have, I used to work for a swim school in Long Island, and anytime we would have a non-fatal or near a drowning event, our phones would ring off the hook. People wanting to get their kids signed up for lessons after the fact. So I said to the owner at the time, I said, why are they calling us after instead of before? And he said, that's really a good thought. He goes, why don't you try putting something together? So I started End Drowning Now, which was the Long Island Drowning Prevention Task Force back in 2008, I believe it was, and tried to get a bunch of professionals together. We could provide information. There wasn't really a good central place to get information on water safety and drowning prevention strategies. So that was my motivation to get behind it, because I just found it ridiculous that we were having these fatal events or non-fatal events every year when it's completely unnecessary.
And New York State, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had, I think, on average, 68 drownings in this state. We have 4 as of April this year, unfortunately, now maybe 5, unfortunately. What are the elements that parents need to understand, starting with that, to protect their children?
Supervision, obviously, is the most important, and that means undistracted supervision. That means that's all you're doing is when a child's near the water, you're watching the water. You're not on your phone, you're not talking to somebody, you're not drinking alcohol. You are literally watching them near the water, on or near the water.
And that goes for the beach or the backyard pool, because when a child falls into the water, if you're distracted by your phone or you're drinking, you take your eyes off that child. The biggest issue, as I understand it, is once they go into the water, you can't see them, but you can't hear them as well. So a designated water watcher. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's super, super important to have a designated water watcher, because drowning is silent. It's not like you see on TV with the waving and then keeping their heads up. That's actually surviving. If a child or an adult actually takes water into the lungs, they're not able to make a sound. And they generally will go underwater without any kind of motion or any kind of noise. So you don't know that's what happened until you see them on the bottom. So it's very, very important to have that adult water watcher that is specifically designated to watching the water. And you can share that responsibility. If you have a backyard event going on or you're at the beach, a lot of people rely on the lifeguards. Always swim in a lifeguarded area. Absolutely never go near the ocean without a lifeguard. But they rely on the lifeguard. You still need to be paying attention and watching your child even in a lifeguarded area. And designating that water watcher to watching that child, when they're anywhere near the water, so that, God forbid there's an event, you're there for them.
Well, the last time we were together, you gave me a lot of these. We put them downstairs at our front entrance, and I speak to our public safety officials downstairs. I want you to be happy to know a lot of parents came in, they took this, and I hope they still have it, and they utilize it at the backyard pool or wherever, because it's a tragedy. I have 2 children. I couldn't even imagine to be in any way responsible for taking my eyes off my kids. Thankfully, they both take swim lessons, but it is a life-changing tragedy that no one should have to experience.
Yeah, as a parent, you have to remember, nobody's perfect, right? I don't know a parent that I've talked to that's had, that we discuss all this when we go on our events and we do our shows, that hasn't had an issue where like, hey, where is such and such, right? You can't watch your child every single second of every single day. So every parent has raised their hand. They've lost sight for their child for a few seconds and they go, oh, phew, he's okay. That's how quick it can happen. So that's why, the water watcher is so, so important. And you can share that responsibility. If you have an outdoor event at your pool, assign somebody 15 minutes at a time, and then they pass this tag on to the next person, That way that person isn't responsible for the entire 3 hours or 2 hours or 5 hours, whatever it is, if you can't hire a lifeguard.
Sure. And you went through a swimming skills assessment. Can you go through that?
Yeah, the swimming skills assessment is really just, what are they able to do? What's their proficiency in the water? Are they able to save themselves? God forbid something happened. Are they able to buy some time in the water? God forbid they fell in, by being instinctively reactive to the water instead of panicking. The reason people drown is because they panic. So if we can get a child not to panic and react in a positive way and float on their back or stay up and be able to turn and get back to the wall or get back, that's going to obviously buy enough time for a parent or an adult to interact.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about children, but adults drowned as well. Before we came on air, I shared with you an experience that happened to me up in the Berkshires in northwest Massachusetts. I'm not an especially strong swimmer, and I happened to fall out of a raft when the water was moving at, I believe, 1,500 feet per second. And it matters with regard to adults as well, on boats and also at the pool and at the beach.
Yes, adults have to understand it can happen to them. Even the most proficient swimmer in the world, an Olympic swimmer, could drown. If they're put in their situation, or they put themselves in a situation where they do not have somebody knowing where they are, they do not have somebody watching them, or swimming in a lifeguarded area, they very easily could have that situation. The story that you were explaining to me, obviously your life jacket was not fitted properly. Adults need to be wearing life jackets as well, and when they're on boats, they need to set the example. Right?
Absolutely.
We can't expect our child or our children to wear life jackets if we, as adults, aren't doing the same thing.
Yeah, and I know you've done a lot of work with County Executive Romaine in Suffolk County, and I'll tell you that, the county executive, I know him personally. He put a pool in his yard. That way the grandchildren could come over. I know his personal rule, whether it be between him and his wife or the kids, is that no one goes in the pool alone. And he's taken to heart what you have taught him and me and everyone in Suffolk, in Brookhaven, over the years. Boating season is opening up. How important is it to have the correct number of life vests on a boat?
It's absolutely 100% preventable, like we talked about. So you need to be prepared. You have to have a float plan. You have to have people knowing where you're going. You have to have all the equipment necessary, the safety equipment necessary before you allow people on your boat. And you, once again, you have to lead by example. I mean, County Executive Romaine and Supervisor you have been super, super supportive in trying to deliver the message to your residents, and we appreciate the support. And together we can make a difference.
And a lot of people have pools in their backyard, above ground, below ground. Some people don't want to go through the expense because it seems the season here is getting shorter and shorter, and the costs of owning a pool are high. You see throughout grocery stores, places, kiddie pools, what I would call a kiddie pool, a plastic pool that you put perhaps in the backyard for the youngest of kids, filled with water for kids to get out of the heat and enjoy. How much water is necessary for a person to drown?
As little as 2 inches.
2 inches.
That could be a bucket that's filled from the rain this past weekend, in your backyard, especially with infants and toddlers. So you need to make sure that if you're using a quick setup pool or a pool that you buy at Walmart or something along those lines, that you're turning it over, emptying it out, and making sure that it's not accessible to a child in that respect. If you have an above ground pool or that the ladder is secure and latched and put away, that there's no toys in the pool, those kinds of things, you're not to distract a child from entering.
And the state code and the town code have changed with regard to the latches, the necessity of fencing around a pool. You know, we have building inspectors that go out, we get tips. You know, we believe that people should live and let live. But you know what? When it comes to pool safety, you have a responsibility to your children. You have a responsibility to other children. If you own a pool, you have to comply with the code and the regulations. In this case, they're instituted for a very good reason, and that's life safety.
Yeah, and you know, I always recommend to people that are looking into a pool is listen, and you know, take into account what the safety features are going to cost you. Now, if you're ready to spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on a pool, you know, spend the extra money. It's well worth it for the safety equipment and all of the surrounding materials that you're going to need to keep that pool as safe as it possibly can be. That includes the interior part of your home. You know, door locks that are 54 inches or higher, interior door alarms, so that when the back slider gets open, you know somebody's entering out of the house into the backyard. You know, and that could be a child, so you know that. Always check the water first if a child is missing. You know, never, you know, like you see a lot of parents running around looking at different rooms. Look to the pool first, and that way you kind of have a better way of being able to respond faster.
That's a good point. If you can't find your kid in an instant, you have a pool, the door's open, don't go running upstairs into the rooms, because time, when a kid falls into a pool, to save their life is the most critical thing. And that, I think, is a very salient point you bring up, to check the pool first, whether it be above ground or in ground. You know, kids will surprise you. They will climb the ladders at the youngest age and get into a pool.
Oh yeah, I mean you see when you have your own child. I had my own child. She used to climb and try to get, you know, cookies out of a cabinet. You know what I mean? And they would be very creative in how to get there. You know, so we have to make sure that you're covering all of the bases, making sure that furniture's put away, that there's no toys in the water that attracts the child to go into, that you have the proper safety equipment in place, and check the water first. Absolutely.
You're 100% right. We have a little stool in my kitchen, and both of our kids would go from the stool, and all of a sudden you come downstairs, you put whatever, the cookies, whatever, they're on the countertop looking to get. So kids are imaginative, curious, and industrious, and as they should be. But it's our job as parents, grandparents perhaps, to ensure that there is not a tragedy. So I thank you for coming on. I thank you for your advocacy, all the educational work that you do. Town of Brookhaven is happy to partner with you and your organization every year, anytime. What is it, if you had one closing final thought to say to those people watching this show, what would you tell them?
Just be vigilant. You know, water is dangerous. You know, and you can be a lot safer around it if you know the layers of protection. We have the splash message up behind us on the board. You know, utilize that acronym. Have kids learn the acronym so that they understand what the S stands for, the P, the L, the A, the S, and the H stand for. And it's listed right there. And if you follow those 6 steps, you know, you're going to make a difference and keep your pool and your water safer.
I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do. You are helping save people's lives, and I really do appreciate you. I consider you a friend, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, same here, and I really appreciate you, Supervisor, and the town of Brookhaven, and all that Suffolk County has done to support these efforts and help save lives.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Supervisor Dan Panico. Thank you for watching. Stay safe this summer, and we will see you next time.